I'd love to just be in your mind so strongly. And that's from Hebrews chapter 13, verse 4. And so this is God's inerrant, infallible, and all-sufficient word. Listen to this very important scripture. Marriage should be honored by everyone. Let me read that again because it's so short. Marriage should be honored by everyone. Today, marriage is under attack. It should be honored by everyone, even if you don't want to ever be married again, you have no interest in it whatsoever, never did, never do, etc. It still should be honored, just like the Bible says, honor father and mother. Maybe father and mother weren't the greatest at times and this or that. We still honor them. We honor the office. We honor policemen. We honor the office. Well, I didn't like this police. We still honor the office. It's the same thing for marriage. It is to be honored by everyone, and yet today we have the exact opposite. We have this huge attack going on marriage, and so it's often delayed and put down and discouraged, etc. And I want to share with you 6 reasons why marriage should be honored, why it is so very, very important. But here's something that shows some of the attack. My sister-in-law was very involved in sports in college. She went to the same college I did, and she was a big star in lacrosse and field hockey. And she'd go to these conferences, these tournaments, and there'd be people with posters saying this, and pictures, and T-shirts and stuff, just saying, in other words, I don't need an old man to be with me, or I don't need a woman, or whatever. And there's this big attack, and everybody thinks marriage is like the worst thing ever. And God says the opposite, that it's something that should be honored and deserves it. Now, I want to talk to you about a few seconds about how we are different, and that leads to some problems when we're different. But also why it's just so important that we allow men to be men and women to be women, and we get in trouble when we try to make men into women or we try to make women into men. Just some different key biology between the sexes. Men tend to be 6 inches taller on average. 40% more upper body muscle mass, 33% more lower body muscle mass. They have a larger heart and more red blood cells. They have denser bones. I didn't say they're dense. I said they have denser bones. You keep that straight. They have denser bones, stronger ligaments and tendons. However, look at the female's brain. Women have 9.5 times more white matter, processing matter, than men do. They have larger pupils and can see more colors. How is that fair? That they can see colors we can't see. They have a better sense of smell. That's not necessarily a good thing. I don't know if it's good. More taste buds. Now that's a good thing. That's a good thing to have more taste buds. Superior language processing. They're better in language and those sorts of things. An empathizing brain. Have you ever noticed that women will associate and care and empathize more than guys will a lot of times? They're wired to nurture and to connect. Superior facial recognition. They can recognize faces and people better. More detailed memory, like everything you ever did wrong in the last 40 years. They remember all those things. Detailed memory. Better fine motor skills. So for fine motor skills, they tend to be better. Now, guys, on the other hand, have 6.5 times or more percentage more gray matter. Their brain is 10% larger, and they have better sensory motor. That's it. Sensory motor skills. So the big motor skills, they're better at those. Women are better at the fine ones. So there's a difference between men and women, and that's the way God intended it. Rick Warren says, you were made by God and for God, and until you understand that, life will never make sense. If we don't understand that God's the one who made us, and we're made for God, and He's got a purpose for us, it won't make sense until we understand that. Also, what's super important is understanding that we are made in the image of God. Men are made in the image of God. Women are made in the image of God, and yet God's desire is to bring the two who are different together. Two who are not going to see things from the same perspective. He wants to bring them together. And that's a part of his plan in marriage. Now here's something about biology too. Here is Mary Gregory. And Mary Gregory, just this past weekend, at a big raw lifting thing preparing for the Olympics, won all 9 events and crushed 4 of the events and set new world records. Now, does something look a little different to you about Mary? Does something stand out a little bit? There's some biology issues here. If you're not sure, here's from the back. There's some biology issues. This is not a female physique right here. This is a male physique. Mary is a biological male competing with women. And so are the women all excited about having this biological male competing? Here's what Kelly Holmes, who won 2 Olympic gold medals in 2004, she said, if he goes to the Olympics, we're going to boycott the Olympics because it's ridiculous. It's men competing with women. Here's Sharon Davies, who won a 1980 silver medalist, came in second to the East German team. Do you remember how the East Germans used to do swimming with the steroid, the testosterone? They pumped themselves full of testosterone. Well, that got banned. That was illegal. She said, we're back to the same thing again. We're competing against the East Germans again. Here's what she said. The reason we have men and women's races are because we are biologically different, she wrote. Performance 100% confirms that. The reason steroids, including testosterone, are on the banned list is because using them gives an advantage. And so they're not excited about Mary Gregory and those records being demolished that can't be reached. And it has even a bigger impact than just going to the Olympics. Here's Selena Soule, who is from Glastonbury, Connecticut, the fastest woman in Connecticut in high school, and is planning to go to college on a scholarship based on the fact that she is the fastest runner in Connecticut. Well, she got beat this last race by the 2 folks on the left here, and she came in 3rd, and now the college is wondering if she's going to get the scholarship. Does something strike you about the 2 people on the left? They're a biological male, and they're competing, and they're made differently. We're not made the same. It's not an even playing ground, an even playing field. And so here, now, as she described these 2 guys, they used to be mediocre athletes racing against other males, other biological males. Now they come over into this area, and they might get a college scholarship for that, which shows how bizarre it is when we ignore biology. God's plan is to take a masculine male and a feminine female and bring the 2 of them together. That's God's plan. Male with female, and not males trying to be females or females trying to be males, but being who God created us. And there's 6 purposes that I want to show you here that happen when marriage is done the way God intended. And it's very sad that today it is a radical statement to say marriage is between one man and one woman in the state of matrimony. That's a radical thing to say today, which is so sad. Okay, number 1, the purpose of marriage is to connect a man who's made in the image of God with a woman who is made in the image of God. That's the plan. It's not the same, but 2 very different, biologically in every way, creatures to bring them together as one. 1 Corinthians 11:1 says, well, why should we bring them together? Remember that in God's plan, men and women need each other. We need men. Women need men. Men need women. We need each other. That is God's plan. That's what he wants. And so he put that need in each of us for each other. Here's the first thing that God said that wasn't good. We looked at this one last week. It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a companion who is right for him. Now, why didn't God make Adam and Eve at the exact same time? Wouldn't that have been more efficient use of time? Is to make them both at the same time. I think that God's plan was to have Adam feel the loneliness so that he would appreciate this person who is going to be very different from he is in every area of thinking, of working, of every area, was going to come at things from a completely different angle. And I think that was God's plan, is to feel the aloneness. And I think sometimes we go through a stage of life where we feel the aloneness so that we will appreciate it when God brings that right person and we're connected, but we find out, whoa, they're very different than we are. We need to appreciate that aloneness that we felt for a period of time. Here's what Jesus said. God's plan has been seen from the beginning of creation when he made us male and female. That was God's idea, to make us male and female, to make us different. It wasn't our idea. God made us that way. This explains why a man leaves father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united as one body. So he's saying these two, here's this male made in the image of God, and a female made in the image of God. They're drawn together and they're made one. And that's God's plan, is the masculinity, the femininity come together and they become, as the Bible says, one, needing the masculine components and the feminine components. Now, since they are no longer two but one, no one should separate them, for God has joined them together. And that's God's plan, is to bring them together, to join them, even though they're very different in so many ways. To join them together, they become one. Secondly, God created marriage to multiply the human race. The reason you are here is a male and a female somehow got together, or you wouldn't be here. It's also God's way of populating heaven. For God to get a group of people that he's going to invite to come to heaven, they need to be born here. That's God's plan, is that we would be born here on this earth. So it says in Genesis 1:27, so God created people in his own image. He patterned them after himself, creating both male and female with his image. Then God blessed them. And look at this. This is the very first command in the Bible. You ready for this? He blessed them and commanded them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Can I give you my translation of the very first command ever given? Get married and have sex. There is the very first one. I don't get too many complaints on that commandment. All the men, that's exactly what it says there. That's what God wants us, to get together and fill the earth. We're working pretty good on that one. I get complaints on the other commandments, but not on that one. But that's God's plan, is to populate the earth. Here is Malachi, the last book of the Old Testament. God, not you, made marriage. Marriage wasn't my invention. Marriage wasn't your invention. It was God's idea. That's why the state should not be defining what marriage is and what marriage is not. That's not their job. That's God's job, to define what marriage is. God, not you, made marriage. His Spirit inhabits even the smallest details of marriage. He's not caught off guard by the differences between your spouse and you. He's aware of all of that. What does God want from marriage? Godly children from the union. God is looking for children. He's going to populate heaven with the people that we produce. So guard the spirit of marriage within you. Guard that respect, that love, that appreciation for marriage. Appreciate what God's done. Third reason, God created marriage to protect children. One of the biggest surprises to me in marriage life was watching Cheryl when we had that first baby. Here came this first little baby, and I watched this sweet little Cheryl turn into Mama Bear. And I see a bunch of Mama Bears out here that I'm looking at. You mess with their kids. Ooh, they're very nice, sweet, like this. Tell something's going wrong with their kids, and they're it's unbelievable. You know how when there's a brand new baby, it's not good for the little baby to be passed around to 50 million people getting germs all over them? Well, they said to me, here, can I see your baby? Sure. Like that. Not Cheryl. He's protecting that baby. That's why God created the family. That's why you have advocated for your children. Nobody else is going to advocate for your kids more than you will. And you're doing that because God put that in you. God put it in to protect your children, and it's His ingenious plan. They had this, some kind of government committee. How can we help kids more? Let's make this advocate for the kids. It would be assigned to them to care for them, and all the other people. Yeah? It's called a parent. That's what they do. They advocate for their kids. They're watching over their kids. That's the plan that God has. Listen to this. Here's Proverbs 14:26. Those who obey and respect the Lord have a secure fortress. Their children have a place of refuge and security. Do children need a place of refuge today? Do they need a place of security? They certainly do. They need that, and you provide that in marriage, in your home. You provide that place of refuge and security. That's what God wants to see happen. There's a great book out called The Case for Marriage, written by a sociologist from the University of Chicago, which is a great school. They call it the Harvard of the Midwest, and a columnist, and they did all this research on marriage, and look what they found. Married people live longer statistically, have better health while they're alive, they earn more money, they hang on to the money that they earn, they accumulate more wealth, they feel more fulfillment in their lives, they enjoy more satisfying sexual relationships, and they have happier and more successful children. And so, just 3 years ago or so in the Times-Union, front page, they had a study of all the students that went to Cornell University. And one of the big statistics is they found that 91% of them came from a home where their mom and their dad were in their home together. It has an impact. Marriage has an impact in the long run with our kids. It makes them happier and more successful. My daughter was in Mozambique for 2 years. And she worked with this orphanage and grew it, and with the school there, and doubled the size of the school, 1,600 students, I think, something like that. And the best thing she did was not bringing kids in the orphanages. And every one of the kids had some wild story. One of the little guys had been just left on the bus by whoever, and was found riding around and around, and when they brought him to my daughter, he just held on to her leg for a week and wouldn't let go. He was so scared he would be deserted again. And in the midst of all that heartbreak and caring and all the love and passion, and this church helped in so many ways, we provided a new kitchen. She called up one day and said, was there a tornado or something? Hurricane, typhoon or something? I don't know, I didn't notice it. Our kitchen blew away yesterday. Oh, everything else still there? Yeah, but the kitchen blew away, so we helped put in the new kitchen. We did all these things to help. But the best thing she did is she adopted out almost every single one of them to a family member. They had to research, and here's a sister that's 25 years older that they've never met before. Here's an aunt that's way out there something. They got them connected. Here's a cousin, a distant cousin. They got them connected, and then they became a part of a family, and they got the caring and the love that comes when you're a part of that family. So that was the best thing she did. The fourth purpose of marriage is so vitally important. And this one is so overlooked. Everyone goes into marriage, including me. I'm going to be so happy. Everything is going to be so wonderful. Everything is going to be rosy. If we have a problem, we'll just talk about it. What's so hard about that? Then you get married and find out, oh, there's some problem. What if I told you getting married won't solve your relationship problems? It not only won't solve them, it will exacerbate them. It will make them worse. So, I used to have such a nice testimony. I really liked my testimony before I got married. I grew up with 6 kids, and I used to get mad. I was a middle child who was just, they're in a group shot. Everybody focuses on the oldest and the youngest, and the middle, and you're just a group shot. And so I used to get mad, but then I came to Jesus, and now I don't have any anger anymore. Then I got married. That anger hadn't gone anywhere. It was just waiting for me to get married. The guys in my fraternity house, they didn't affect my finances. So I didn't have anything to be angry about. They didn't affect my sex life, so I didn't have anything to be angry about there. They didn't affect my kids. You're not going to treat my kids that way. And they didn't affect any of that. But when I get married, it affects all of those things. And all of a sudden, there was that anger. It hadn't gone anywhere. It was just waiting for the spotlight and the pressure. And that's what happens when you get into marriage. If I am cranky, once I get married, that will all go away, right? No! It'll be like there's a spotlight on it. If I'm a perfectionist, is that just going to go away when I get married? No, it's going to get worse. If I'm fearful or bitter or angry, those things aren't going to go away just because I got married. In fact, it's going to be intensified. If I'm controlling and manipulative, it's going to be magnified because I'm in close proximity. Marriage is 2 selfish people in close proximity to each other, and it's going to rub off. Those bad characteristics are going to be poked and prodded, and they're going to be coming out to light. It doesn't fix them. It's selfish and stupid to think only of yourself. What was I thinking of? I'm going into marriage. This is about me and how I can be happy, and that's what this is all about. And boy, that didn't bless anybody. That was not a big help, going in with that mindset that this was going to solve all my problems. Instead, I've got to do the opposite. Love sincerely. Hold on to what is good. Be devoted to each other like a loving family. Excel in showing respect for each other. That's what we need to be doing. Instead, I was looking, this is for me, and it's going to make me so happy. How do I become like Christ? The number one person that's going to help me grow is my spouse, because they see who I really am. I can kind of dress up for you guys, and I hope you like my presentation. I'm trying to, look the best I can, but in marriage, I'm the real me. This is my public self you're seeing right now. In home, it's the real me with all my selfishness, all the weird things I do. That person is going to help me become like Christ. They don't always get thanked for that. They don't always get congratulated. Thank you so much for pointing out those flaws in my character. I just love it, hearing all of them. That person is going to help you become more like Christ than anybody else. A 5th reason that's so important is it's for constructing society. If there's a strong home, you'll have a strong society. If there's a weak home, you'll have a weak culture. Watch your thoughts, they lead to attitudes. Your attitudes lead to words. Your words lead to actions. Your actions lead to habits. Habits lead to character. And your character determines your destiny. Who's going to do all of that for kids? It takes a family to do that, to point out. It takes someone who's masculine to point out certain parts. Someone who's feminine to bring something else to the table that the other one won't bring. That's what's needed. And together, that makes for a strong culture. When you have 2 people investing in those kids and building their character. Righteousness, which means doing things God's way, lifts up a nation. But sin brings disgrace to any society. And so we need people who are raising righteous children, raising them up to bless our nation. There's a sixth, and this is so important and kind of hard to understand, but the sixth important thing in marriage is it helps us to reflect our union with Christ. What do you mean by that? Here's just out of Ephesians. Ephesians says, love your wives as Christ loved the church. What are you talking about? I thought we were talking about marriage. Why are you talking about as Christ loved the church? He's saying that our marriage is to be a picture of Christ in the church. And so to do that, the husbands have to lay down their lives, love your wives as Christ loved the church, and gave himself up for her. He died so he could give the church to himself as a bride in all her beauty. And that's what husbands are to do. Wives are to submit to their husbands as they lead and direct the family, and they communicate the things that they can see that the husbands are blind to and unaware of. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as they love their own bodies, and that is what Christ does for the church, his body. The scripture says a man is united with his wife, the two become one. There it is again. This is a profound mystery, and it really is profound. It's a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. I thought you were talking about marriage. This is one of the most important passages on marriage. I'm talking about Christ and the church. So, each husband must love his wife as he loves himself, and each wife must respect her husband. Notice it doesn't say, wives, love your husbands, husbands, love your wives. There's a difference, again, between men and women. Men aren't so interested in hearing, I love you, I love you, I love you. Men want to hear that they're respected. And women want to hear that they are loved. And there's a great book called Love and Respect that lays that out so beautifully. How there's a different way, instead of just loving the way you want to be loved, love the way they want to be loved. So that's a great book to read for marriage. Well, I am so grateful to God for what he has done for me. 43 years ago, this month, 1976, none of you were even born then, I was down in South Delaware, starting a church, planting a church down there, and this is like your second home. You had your number one home was up in Wilmington, where the big DuPont factory was. And you'd work there, but on the weekends, you'd come 2 hours south to the beach, and you'd have a mobile home, and it'd be in this park, and you'd go swim in the ocean. I was starting a church down there, and I was lonely. You know that part? I said it's good to be lonely sometimes so that you appreciate when God brings someone who's very different from you in every way. And you don't always appreciate it so much when you're with them. So God allowed me to be lonely. And I felt like I would never get married and be at my advanced age. I was 22. And so I thought, at that age, obviously it's over with for me. It's been done, I'm toast. So there I am, lonely, in Delaware, starting a church. Sure wish I had somebody who just graduated from college. Well, it's over for me finding that person in college. And so I'm reading in Genesis, and it says, you're to look for that God provided a helpmate for Adam. So I said, I've been doing everything the wrong way. I've been looking for who's the prettiest one I can land, and rather than who would be a helper. So I changed my prayer from send me somebody to send me a helper. And the very day I prayed that prayer, there was a little knock at the door that evening. And I went to the door and opened the door. Hello, may I help you? And a big sign up front that I was a chaplain. I had all sorts of weird people knock on my door. So I went to see who it was. And may I help you? And she said, this beautiful gal said, no, may I help you? And I almost passed out on the floor. There's the very prayer I prayed with faith, and when it's being answered, I'm passing out and don't believe it. And so there was my little angel, as I called her, and everybody that looks at that picture says, how in the world did she get someone so good looking as Pastor Eric? Always says that about it. So, anyway, so she has been serving and blessing and caring for me. Can we give a big hand to her? Most of the time. Other times she thinks different than I do. She has a different opinion than I do. That's terrible.
That's terrible.
Coming from a whole different perspective. Again, she asks questions I never even would think of, let alone actually ask somebody. And she also will say the gutsy thing at times that everybody knows needs to be said, and everybody goes like this. She'll say it, and out it comes. So, anyway, I commend to you marriage, and it's something to be honored. It is brutal today. God does lay out grounds for divorce. There are certain situations where biblically laid out as grounds. But I just want to pray the very best for each and every one of you in terms of relationships and say, marriage is worth fighting for. It is worth fighting for. Some of you have really fought hard for them. So, would you grab this little white slip, and there's 5 questions on the back of it, and the first one is, Lord, help me honor marriage, whether I'm married or not, whether you never even want to be married. We need to honor the institution of marriage. It's something created by God. Number 2, I realize marriage is God's plan for connecting men and women who are so different. And yet God uses marriage to bring the sexes together. Number 3, please grow me in the characteristics of a good spouse. I've still got a long ways to go. And we all need that, to grow in the characteristics of a good spouse. Not thinking, oh, that will solve all my problems. It accentuates them. Number 4, I pray that my marriage will reflect Christ and the church. That's what God wants it to. It doesn't many, many times. But that's what I want it to do. And finally, with the realization we cannot do this on our own. We just can't. We're so different. We need the Holy Spirit. We need Jesus in our lives. And this is how a relationship with Him begins. With I repent of my sins and ask Jesus Christ to be my Lord and Savior. That's how I enter in, and then He gives us the supernatural power as we kind of stumble along in marriage, struggling and trying to do it God's way and failing as much as we succeed. But yet, it's God's plan, and so we go after it. So put down as many yeses as you possibly can, and then take this and just drop it in the offering as it goes by. Let's sing together.